Ibotenic acid versus Muscimol, understanding Amanita's two primary compounds. Hey Seekers, if you've spent more than 5 minutes researching Amanita online, you've probably run into two words, Ibotenic acid and Muscimol. And almost immediately, people start picking sides. One is supposedly the bad guy, the other is supposedly the hero. But is it really that simple? I don't think it is. I want to slow this conversation down and walk through it together. Because once you understand these two compounds, Amanita starts making a whole lot more sense. Hey Seekers, if you're new here, I'm Marlucia and I teach the science behind Amanita, specifically Muscaria, Regalis, and Pantherina, the three varieties I work with and deeply trust. Quick disclaimer, this video is for educational purposes only. I'm not here to treat, diagnose, or prescribe anything. And due to YouTube guidelines and FDA regulations, nothing shared here should be taken as medical advice. The goal is to simplify this path so you feel informed enough to work with Amanita on your own, not rely on someone else to tell you what to feel or how to heal. Let's get into it. Let's start with the one that scares everyone. Ibotenic acid. The moment people hear the word acid, I can almost hear the questions and the fear arising. Wait, acid? Isn't that dangerous? Didn't I read somewhere that it's neurotoxic? And honestly, those are fair questions. But before we jump to conclusions, let's ask an even better question. Where did that information come from? Most of it comes from neuroscience research. For decades, scientists have used concentrated ibotenic acid as a laboratory tool. But here's the part that's almost always left out of the conversation. They weren't feeding Amanita mushrooms to animals. They were taking concentrated ibotenic acid and injecting it directly into the brains of mice and rats to intentionally destroy specific groups of neurons. That was the purpose of the experiment. Not healing, not nutrition, not traditional Amanita use. They wanted to create controlled brain lesions so that they could study what happened afterward. And they succeeded. So yes, those studies showed neuronal degeneration because that's exactly what they were designed to produce. But here's the question I want you to think about. Does injecting a concentrated compound directly into brain tissue automatically tell us what happens when someone traditionally prepares and consumes Amanita? No. Those are two completely different routes of exposure. That distinction matters a lot. Now, does that mean ibotenic acid doesn't matter? Absolutely not. In fact, it's really an important part of understanding Amanita. Ibotenic acid is generally considered the more stimulating compound, naturally found in the mushroom. People often describe preparations with more ibotenic acid as feeling more alert, more energized, more creative, more physically active, more outwardly focused, which is exactly why understanding preparation matters, because preparation changes the chemistry and the chemistry changes the experience. That brings us to Muscimol. Muscimol is what many people are actually seeking. When Amanita is prepared through a process called decarboxylation, it converts ibotenic acid into Muscimol. Amanita naturally has both compounds in set amounts. In order to get a full Muscimol experience, you must convert the ibotenic acid. Sounds complicated? Don't worry, we teach you how. And we've done it for you in our slurries. But all it really means is the chemistry changes. And when the chemistry changes, so can the experience. Instead of interacting the same way as ibotenic acid, Muscimol primarily works through the GABA system, a system involved with slowing things down rather than speeding them up. That's why many people describe fully decarbed Amanita, like our slurry, as deeply relaxing, dreamlike, quiet, meditative, and restorative. Some notice vivid dreams, some experience deep sleep, some simply notice that the constant mental chatter finally becomes quiet. But here's something really important. That doesn't make Muscimol better. It makes it different. And I think this is where people accidentally oversimplify the conversation. They want a hero and they want a villain, but nature doesn't really work that way. Both of these compounds naturally exist in Amanita. They're part of the same mushroom. The better question isn't which one is good. The better question is, what relationship are you trying to build with this mushroom? Because different preparations can lead to very different experiences. Neither one should automatically be understood through fear. Both deserve understanding. Now let me make this even more interesting, because not everyone experiences these compounds the same way. Some people report exactly what you'd expect. More ibotenic acid feels stimulating. More Muscimol feels calming. But then someone comes along and says the complete opposite. I've talked to people who became sleepy from ibotenic acid and incredibly productive with Muscimol. So who's right? Maybe both of them. Because Amanita isn't interacting with a textbook, it's interacting with your nervous system. Your stress levels, your sleep, your nutrition, your life. No two people bring the exact same nervous system to the table, which is why I always encourage observation over assumption. Journal your experience. Be patient. Stay curious. Your relationship with Amanita shouldn't be based on someone else's story. It should be built from your own. And before we finish, there's one more fascinating observation. Some people intentionally choose preparations that retain more ibotenic acid. Why? Because they report increased sweating. Some even describe it like sitting in a sweat lodge. Now, scientifically, sweating is primarily how the body regulates temperature, but many people still describe those experiences as physically, emotionally, or even energetically releasing. Whether you view that through the physiology or through an esoteric lens, movement is still movement. Something that felt stuck begins flowing again, and I think that's a beautiful thing to observe. So, ibotenic acid versus Muscimol. Maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe the better question is, what experience are you hoping to cultivate? Understanding Amanita isn't about deciding whether one compound is good and the other is bad. It's about recognizing that they're different expressions of the same teacher. The more we learn, the less we fear. And the less we fear, the more clearly we can think beyond. In our next video lesson, we're going to move beyond the compounds and into something even more important. How do you actually build a long-term relationship with Amanita? Because understanding the chemistry is only the beginning. The real teacher is the relationship. I'll see you in the next video. I love you forever. Remember, this isn't about chasing effects or copying someone else's protocol. It's about tuning in to your own rhythm, trusting your body, and staying consistent enough to let the shifts unfold. If this helped you understand Amanita a little deeper, hit like, subscribe, or drop a comment below. I love hearing how this work is landing for you. And if you're ready to go further, check the description for links to more education, trusted sources, and next steps for your journey. Stay curious, stay grounded, and always think beyond. With love.